From the moment the first raindrop falls on a mountain peak to the instant fresh water meets the salt of the ocean, rivers define the story of the United States. They are the hidden architects of the land, carving valleys, feeding plains, shaping climates, and guiding the movement of people for thousands of years. Long before borders were drawn and cities were built, rivers flowed freely across the continent, forming natural highways and lifelines that made human settlement possible. To understand the United States is to understand its rivers, because they are not merely bodies of water, but living systems that connect geography, history, economy, and culture into one continuous flow. The United States contains one of the most diverse and extensive river networks on Earth. From the frozen streams of Alaska to the slow, warm rivers of the Deep South, from the steep, fast-flowing rivers of the Rockies to the broad, winding channels of the Midwest, American rivers reflect the immense geographic diversity of the continent. Some rivers roar through narrow canyons, while others drift lazily across wide floodplains. Some are short and violent, others long and patient, carrying water across thousands of kilometers. Together, they form a circulatory system that keeps the land alive. At the heart of this system stands the Mississippi River, the undisputed giant of American rivers. Rising quietly from Lake Itasca in northern Minnesota, the Mississippi begins as a narrow stream, easily stepped across. Yet as it flows southward, it absorbs the waters of countless tributaries, growing wider, deeper, and more powerful with every mile. By the time it reaches the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi has become one of the largest river systems in the world, draining water from more than 40% of the continental United States. It passes through or borders 10 states directly, and influences many more indirectly, acting as the central spine of the nation's inland waterways. The Mississippi is not just a river, it is a moving landscape. Its slow curves, known as meanders, constantly shift over time, eroding one bank while depositing sediment on the other. This process creates fertile floodplains, some of the richest agricultural land on Earth. For centuries, these lands have supported crops that feed millions, making the Mississippi Basin the agricultural heart of the United States. Corn, soybeans, wheat, and cotton all owe their success to the river's periodic flooding and sediment deposits. Without the Mississippi, the economic and demographic map of the United States would look entirely different. Feeding into the Mississippi from the west is the Missouri River, the longest river in the United States. Stretching from the Rocky Mountains of Montana to its confluence with the Mississippi near St. Louis, the Missouri flows through the Great Plains, a vast region shaped by wind, grass, and water. Historically, the Missouri was known as the Big Muddy, carrying enormous amounts of sediment from the plains and mountains. This sediment gave the river its brown color and contributed to its unpredictable behavior, with shifting channels and frequent floods. The Missouri River played a critical role in the westward expansion of the United States. It served as a natural route into the interior of the continent, guiding explorers, traders, and settlers into lands previously unknown to European Americans. The Lewis and Clark expedition followed the Missouri upstream in the early 19th century, mapping vast territories and opening the door to expansion. Along its banks, Native American nations lived for generations, relying on the river for water, food, and transportation long before settlers arrived. The Missouri, like many American rivers, carries both stories of opportunity and stories of displacement. From the east, the Ohio River joins the Mississippi, forming another major artery of the American river system. The Ohio River begins at the confluence of the Allegheny and Monongahela rivers in Pittsburgh and flows westward, marking natural boundaries between states. Compared to the Mississippi and Missouri, the Ohio is more controlled, with a series of dams and locks that regulate its flow. Yet historically it was one of the most important rivers for migration and trade. During the 19th century it served as a gateway to the Midwest, allowing settlers to move westward by boat with relative ease. The Ohio River also holds deep symbolic meaning in American history. For enslaved people seeking freedom, crossing the Ohio often meant crossing from slave states into free territory. It became known as the River Jordan, a boundary between oppression and hope. Even today, the Ohio stands as a reminder that rivers are not just physical features, but social and cultural divides that shape human experience. While the Mississippi system dominates the central United States, other major river systems define different regions of the country. In the eastern United States, rivers tend to be shorter but more numerous, shaped by the ancient Appalachian Mountains and consistent rainfall. Rivers like the Hudson, Delaware, and Potomac played key roles in early American history, serving as gateways for European settlement and trade. The Hudson River, flowing from the Adirondack Mountains to New York Harbor, became one of the most important commercial rivers in the nation. Its deep, navigable waters allowed ships to travel far inland, connecting the Atlantic Ocean to the interior of New York State. The construction of the Erie Canal in the 19th century linked the Hudson to the Great Lakes, creating a continuous water route from the Atlantic to the heart of the continent. This transformed New York City into the nation's leading port and economic center, all because of a river's natural path. Further south, the Potomac River flows past the nation's capital, serving as both a geographic and symbolic feature of American governance. It separates Maryland from Virginia and provides water to millions of people in the region. During the Civil War, the Potomac marked a critical boundary between the Union and the Confederacy, and its crossings were often scenes of military tension. Today, it stands as a quiet witness to centuries of political and social change. In the southeastern United States, rivers flow through humid landscapes of forests, wetlands, and coastal plains. Rivers like the Tennessee, Cumberland, Savannah, and Alabama wind through regions shaped by heavy rainfall and dense vegetation. These rivers supported early agriculture, especially cotton plantations, and later became vital sources of hydroelectric power. Dams built along these rivers during the 20th century brought electricity to rural areas, fueling industrial growth but also altering natural ecosystems. The Tennessee River, in particular, demonstrates how rivers can be reshaped by human intervention. Through the efforts of the Tennessee Valley Authority, a network of dams transformed the river into a controlled system that reduced flooding, generated power, and improved navigation. While these changes brought economic benefits, they also flooded communities, displaced families, and permanently altered natural habitats. The story of the Tennessee River reflects a broader American pattern: the constant tension between harnessing rivers for human use and preserving their natural character. In contrast to the water-rich East, the western United States tells a very different river story. Here, rivers are fewer, longer, and far more precious. Rainfall is limited, and rivers often begin in high mountain ranges before flowing through deserts and arid plains. In the West, rivers are not just features of the landscape, they are the foundation of life itself. The Colorado River is the most famous and controversial river of the American West. Rising in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, it flows southwest through Utah and Arizona, carving some of the most dramatic landscapes on Earth, including the Grand Canyon. Over millions of years, the Colorado River cut through layers of rock, exposing the geological history of the continent in towering canyon walls. This immense erosive power stands in stark contrast to the river's present condition. Today, the Colorado River is one of the most heavily managed rivers in the world. A series of massive dams, including Hoover Dam and Glen Canyon Dam, control its flow and store water in enormous reservoirs like Lake Mead and Lake Powell. The river's water is divided among 7 U.S. states and Mexico, supporting tens of millions of people, vast agricultural operations, and major cities such as Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Los Angeles. Yet in many years, the Colorado no longer reaches the sea, its waters consumed long before they can flow into the Gulf of California. The struggle over the Colorado River highlights the limits of water in the American West. Climate change, prolonged drought, and overuse have placed unprecedented stress on the river system. As water levels drop, questions arise about sustainability, fairness, and the future of life in the region. The Colorado River reveals how deeply American society depends on rivers, and how fragile that dependence can be. Further west, rivers like the Columbia and the Snake dominate the Pacific Northwest. The Columbia River, originating in Canada and flowing to the Pacific Ocean, is one of the largest rivers by volume in North America. Fed by snowmelt from the Rockies and Cascade Mountains, it carries immense energy, which has been harnessed through a series of hydroelectric dams. These dams generate a significant portion of the region's electricity, powering cities and industries. The Columbia River is also central to the cultural identity of Native American tribes who have lived along its banks for thousands of years. Salmon once migrated upstream in vast numbers, forming the basis of complex ecosystems and sustaining indigenous cultures. While dams have brought power and economic growth, they have also disrupted these migrations, threatening fish populations and traditional ways of life. The Columbia story is one of abundance, power, and loss, all flowing together in the same channel. In California, rivers such as the Sacramento and San Joaquin form the backbone of one of the most productive agricultural regions in the world. These rivers flow through the Central Valley, delivering water to fields that produce fruits, vegetables, and nuts for the entire nation. Yet, like the Colorado, California's rivers are intensely managed, diverted, and stored to meet human demands. The natural rhythms of flooding and drought have been replaced by engineered systems, leaving ecosystems vulnerable and water supplies uncertain. Across the entire United States, rivers act as connectors. They link mountains to oceans, cities to farms, and past to present. They shape climate by transporting heat and moisture, influence wildlife by creating corridors of life, and define political boundaries drawn on maps. Every major American city owes its existence, in some way, to a nearby river, whether for water, transportation, power, or trade. Yet rivers are not static. They respond to climate, to land use, and to human intervention. Pollution, dam construction, deforestation, and urbanization have all left marks on American rivers. Some have been cleaned and restored, while others continue to struggle under the weight of modern demands. The future of the United States is inseparable from the future of its rivers, because as rivers change, so too does the land and the people who depend on it. In the end, the rivers of the United States are more than geographic features. They are storytellers, carrying the memory of ancient landscapes, indigenous cultures, exploration, conflict, industry, and survival. They remind us that the nation was not built only on roads and railways, but on flowing water that guided movement, sustained life, and shaped destiny. As they continue their endless journey toward the sea, American rivers remain the silent, powerful narrators of the country's past, present, and uncertain future. As the rivers of the United States carved valleys and shaped landscapes, they also carved the path of American history itself. Long before highways, railroads, and airports connected the nation, rivers were the primary engines of movement, trade, and power. They determined where cities would rise, where borders would be drawn, and where wealth would accumulate. In many ways, the United States did not expand outward from its coasts randomly. It expanded by following the flow of its rivers, allowing water to guide ambition, settlement, and control. In the earliest chapters of American history, rivers were essential to survival. Indigenous nations understood this deeply. Along riverbanks, Native American societies developed complex systems of agriculture, fishing, trade, and transportation. Rivers such as the Mississippi, Ohio, Columbia, and Susquehanna were not obstacles to overcome but living partners in daily life. Seasonal flooding enriched soil, fish migrations provided reliable food sources, and waterways connected distant communities. Rivers were spiritual entities as much as physical ones, woven into origin stories, rituals, and cultural identity. When European explorers arrived, they quickly recognized the strategic value of American rivers. Spanish, French, Dutch, and British expeditions all relied on rivers to penetrate the vast interior of the continent. Dense forests, rugged terrain, and unfamiliar landscapes made overland travel slow and dangerous, but rivers offered natural highways that required no construction. Canoes, flatboats, and later steamboats turned rivers into arteries of empire. The French, in particular, used rivers to build a continental trading network. By controlling the St. Lawrence River, the Great Lakes, and the Mississippi River system, they created a chain of forts and trading posts that stretched from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. Fur, one of the most valuable commodities of the era, flowed down these rivers toward European markets.